point. Say contemporary. The word contemporary suggests all those things which were suggested by the word modern. And so the word contemporary started being used from Second World War onwards, or after the Second World War onwards. So that is something about modern. Now this is also interesting to note that the word modernism can be used in plural, and so consequently you don't have modernism, but rather you can have different conceptions of modernism, different conceptions of modernism. Now what are those different conceptions of modernism? Earlier, when modernism was studied, it was usually something male, something heterosexual, something eurocentric, something white. When I was a student, say it never ever struck me that the word modernism implied some other currents also. For us, for many of my contemporaries also, for many of my, say, mates also, the word modern British literature at that time had a particular ring about it, or modernism had a particular ring about it. We did not pause to think that modernism would imply probably some other currents also, which were not white, which were not male, which were not coming from Europe. And so from 1960s onwards, the word modernism is also used in plural. That means in order to acknowledge many of those other presences. Now, what are some of those other presences? What are some of those other currents? One very important current is black writings, black literature, African writings. And you know that especially in the context of United States of America, 1920s was also the period of something called Harlem Renaissance. Harlem Renaissance. I know that those of you who are studying the other paper, life writing paper, you must have come across this word Harlem in the autobiography of Malcolm X. Harlem. Harlem was a black neighborhood, but Harlem was also a place which asserted black identity. It asserted black identity in literature. It asserted black identity in arts. And black identity was also asserted in a very strong manner through music. Say, for example, jazz. So that means this other current coming from black writings and also coming from not only Afro American writings, but also from African writings, that also imbued the notion of modernism. And then, as we started learning about other currents, we saw that there were other currents also. For example, Asian, Chinese. Try to just see one example from Urdu poetry. You have many writers who are considered writers of Jadidiyat, writers who are considered modernist. And many of these writers also experimented with a particular form called haiku. Now, haiku was a Japanese form. So we see that the influence is coming from many other sources as well. Haiku was a Japanese form. And if you look and analyze the scene further, and especially in more recent times, you see that in English literature also, many writers tried to write ghazals. Now, ghazal is a typically Indian form which flourished in India, although say it also had that say Persian influence, but it flourished in India more than any other country. And ghazal also has certain special features. Each couplet in ghazal is independent. Ghazal has a particular kind of tone. Now, ghazal is typically Urdu or Persian, but many English writers also try to write ghazals. And one very important name who actually introduced ghazal to the English speaking world was Agha Shahid Ali. Those who are from Kashmir, you know that Agha Shahid Ali was from Kashmir. He studied in Delhi. He went to the United States of America, and he also practiced ghazal writing in English. And also he taught many other of his contemporaries to write ghazals in English. So what is this? This is also a modernist form, but it imbues modernism with a different kind of meaning. And of course, there was also the presence of the diaspora. Diaspora means many of those many of those writers who do not belong to a particular country, see for example Britain or United States of America, those who come from outside, those who come from Asia or Africa or maybe many other non-Western countries. They are called diasporic writers. This is very interesting because the word diasporic writer is not used for somebody like William Dalrymple, say, or many other writers. So suppose somebody comes from England and United States of America and settles down in India, he or she also leaves his or her country, but is not considered diasporic in that sense. So diaspora is again a term which has some special meanings. So the word modernism used in plural, modernisms. And from 1960s onwards, there is this awareness that modernism is not one single monolithic category. It is not simply white, it is not simply male, it is not simply Eurocentric, but rather it is informed by other powerful currents: African, Afro American, Asian, diasporic, Chinese, Japanese, and so on. So that means this becomes a contested term. And then another notion is also added to this. Did modernism really start all afresh in the early 20th century? Or there are some works, some writers who are also modernists in their approach, but who usually are identified with an earlier period. And so one can even think about somebody like Robert Browning, Walter Pater. And of course, if you query the scene, you can find those modernist elements in the works of many other writers as well. So the term modernism and the word modernisms and the root word modo and its Latin roots and then its original meaning current, and then word the current keeps changing. Current remains relative. Current remains contested. Right. I hope you have understood this point. I try to make it as clear as possible. Now we come to another related term. And what is that related term? We have the word modernist. We have the word modernist. And this is a term which has been in use for 5 centuries. And it also referred to modern ways of thinking, modern ways of doing things, right? So in a word, this word actually was used with reference to arts. Something that is important is that this word was used with reference to arts, right? Now, when this word was used with reference to arts, and when we think about some writers who were very popular, especially in 20s, who are considered, say, very important names in modernism, they, and who are they? Ezra Pound was a major figure there. And Ezra Pound gave a slogan, make it new, make it new, make it new. I wonder if you have tried to analyze or if you had tried to see Ezra Pound's influence on the poetry of T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot would not have been T.S. Eliot but for the influence of Ezra Pound. And Ezra Pound is also a pioneer as far as, say, a particular movement called Imagism is concerned in modern British literature. And interesting thing is that Ezra Pound was considered the most learned of all people in his times. He helped T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot is a big name. He helped even financially James Joyce. And again, James Joyce and T.S. Eliot, these are the two, say, card holding modernists, you can say, if we can use a modern term. So his influence is the Pound's influence, that he talked about making something new. That was the kind of slogan which was picked up by many others also. So the word modernist from 1960s was used, and it was used to refer to all these writers which you have studied in your modern British literature syllabus. And there also you can see the expression of modernist, the expression of modernist conception of literature, the expression of modernist conception of art in many movements. They all are related, but they also have a clear focus. Now, what are some of those movements? You have heard those names. See, for example, you have heard the movement called Imagism. I just mentioned Imagism, where it had been influenced by the poetry of Ezra Pound, where images become important. If you read T.S. Eliot, there also you see all those powerful images. That means those images make a poem, right? So that is one important aspect. And then, of course, another aspect, special feature was formalism. Formalism, that means concern with form. Form is everything. Medium is the message. Medium is the message. Form is everything. And one cannot separate form from content. For T.S. Eliot's poetry, form is all important. For James Joyce's fiction, novels, form is all important. How they use words, how they use sentences, how they do not follow chronology, how they do not follow established notions of presenting material in works of literature, how they have a different conception of character, they have a different conception of plot. In fact, in some efforts, even plot was done away with. That means a novel trying to achieve something by shunning the idea of plot altogether. So this is all, say, a kind of fixation on form. So, and you also have many of those other movements, expressionism, impressionism. You have impressionistic art, especially impressionistic art. That was a very important movement. You also had a movement called Cubism, and we think about somebody like Picasso when we think about Cubism. And if you have paid a visit to our university museum, you can also see many of those paintings which are in the style of Cubism. And you also have, say, something called montage. That is also a kind of art form. Somebody who is, say, very much, somebody who belongs very much to Aligarh, say Farhan Mujib. He was a professor of physics, and later he quit his job and he became a full-time collage painter, a very good friend of say Javed Akhtar. In fact, Javed Akhtar, his son Farhan, I am very sure that Farhan got his name from Javed's friendship with Farhan Mujib, right? So that means all these related movements in painting, all these related movements in art, all these related movements in architecture, and of course, all these related movements in literature. They all have had a kind of influence on each other. And so when you think about modernist literature, modernist art, you see all these movements, and all these movements need to be studied. And of course, there is also the other side, conceptual side behind all these movements, the ideological side behind all these movements, the context behind all these movements. Now, what is that context? What is the social background? What is the intellectual and historical background of many of these movements? So you had this idea of an emancipated woman, for example. When we think about gender, we think about this new woman, this concept of new woman. Even somebody like Virginia Woolf pointed out that she wrote that famous work, A Room of One's Own, an important, say, early feminist text. And then there is another context. And what is that context? The empire was a fact of life. British Empire in all, in many countries, if not all. And then there were also some movements of workers in different places. And when you had those movements of workers, you also had the emergence of Labour Party in many countries. And of course, one very important thing was the technology taking over all walks of life. Say you have a word, assembly line production, assembly line production, or factory line mass production. When something is produced on a mass basis. So for example, there is the model of a car, and all those cars are produced on that model. For example, there is the model of some other object, and many of those things are produced. So this was possible because of the rise of technology. So modernist in literature and art looks at many of those movements in art, painting, music, architecture, movement like Dadaism, Impressionism, movements like Surrealism, right? Movements like Futurism, Futurism, movements like Formalism, movements like Imagism, Impressionism, Expressionism. These are movements. And you see that often literature is influenced by music, literature is also influenced by architecture, literature is also influenced by paintings, and they in turn are also influenced by these notions of modernist art. And there is that ideological side in the background, which I just mentioned, say the emergence of new women, assembly line production, rise of technology, the fact of empire, the empire in different countries, the fact of colonies, and that also means that colonialism is also very much at the back of modernism, something which was not understood earlier, but now its influence is also seen. And otherwise, how would one talk about the influence on modernism coming from Japan, coming from Asia, coming from Africa, coming from say India, coming from many of these places? So we understand this term, modernism. Now there is yet another term which remains unexplained, and that term is modernity. Modernity. You can say, what you can say is that modernism is the aesthetic and literary side of modernity. Modernity actually is a term which was first used by, or which was first defined by a very important, say, poet, Baudelaire. Baudelaire. And what is understood by modernity? Something which is contingent, something which is fashionable, something which is fleeting, something which is ephemeral, something which is difficult to get hold of, as against the concept of something which is for all periods, something which is not subject to change, something which is immutable, something which is eternal. So, see, there are two different conceptions, something which is eternal, something which is immutable, something which is not subject to change, something which is for all times. Now, this is one side. So, modernity refers to something which is fleeting, something which is ephemeral, something which is changing, something which is not for all times, something which is fashionable maybe at one time, something which is fleeting, something which is running away, something which is short lived, ephemeral, and something which is contingent, not permanent. And you know that this conception of modernity is also backed by certain very important forces, certain very important social and intellectual forces. And what are those forces? Here we must bring into picture industrial revolution. So what happened after industrial revolution? A very wide spread industrialization. Industrialization. You see that it was only because of industrialization that kind of assembly line production was possible. So industrialization is a major context of modernity. And then it is not only industrialization, it is also a related phenomenon, and that is urbanization. That means from countryside to cities, cities were developing. How many cities were there in India at the turn of the century in the year 1900? And how many cities are here today? In fact, in your own lifetime, you must have seen many towns being converted into cities and many cities being converted into metropolis. See, when I was your age, we used to remember this fact that there are four metropolitan cities in India. And which were those metropolitan cities? We'll say, okay, Delhi, we'll say Bombay, we'll say Madras, and we'll say Calcutta. That was then. But now you have so many other cities also, which in fact rival these cities. You have Hyderabad, you have Ahmedabad, you have, say, you can add more cities. Bangalore, of course. And Bangalore was also possible because of this rise of technology. So, urbanization, industrialization, and you can also talk about a gradual weakening of the hold of religion and the entire process of secularization. Now, this is a debatable point whether secularization has happened or not, but secularization is also something which is very much in the background of modernity. So, one thinks about modernity and one thinks about something which is fleeting as against something eternal. We are using the terms made popular by Baudelaire. And we are talking about its, say, social and intellectual context where urbanization, industrialization, and secularization, these become important forces, right? Now here, one can also add that when these changes took place, it changed the entire pattern of life. And even the ideas of time and space underwent a kind of change. And many of these writers, in fact, appear sometimes against this change, and sometimes they are championing this change. which I suggested by saying that you have both these tones in modernist literature, the tone of condemnation and the tone of celebration. You have celebratory modernism and you also have condemnatory modernism. Another fact also must be mentioned here that whenever we think about this concept of modernity, there also we try to trace its history, modernity. And so in some accounts, the history of modernity is traced to that period when many advances were made in science. See, for example, when many of those advances were made even, or they were being made even during the Renaissance period. And then, of course, more importantly, many of those advances were made during the period called Enlightenment. Enlightenment. So, Enlightenment becomes a very important intellectual current when we trace the history of the concept of modernity. And one major aspect of Enlightenment was reliance on reason, not on authorities, not on religious and ecclesiastical authorities, but on reason. So somebody like Jürgen Habermas, who is a very important thinker in, say, who is a very important thinker of modernity, talks about the unfinished project of modernity which began from the period of Enlightenment. And here we can possibly trace the history, say, intellectual and the philosophical side of modernism or modernity here in this context. As I said, that modernism is the aesthetic response to modernity. Modernity is a word which is used in social sciences, and sociology took its birth from this period of modernity. I'll stop my discussion here. I hope you understood. I would appreciate if somebody can very quickly talk about many of the things that I mentioned, because we'll talk about then some other things next week. Yes, sir, please. Somebody. Madhya, can you very quickly say just sum up?
So we talked about the various movements that are associated with modern period. That is imagism, formalism, impressionism, expressionism, cubism, surrealism, and how there are sort of multiple modernities existing simultaneously. So modern period is not just this wide European Eurocentric literature, but also the other literatures that were emerging. For example, the Black assertion of identity, which happened. Then we have the distinctions between modernism and modernity, which is defined by Baudelaire when he says that, you know, something that is temporary, something that is fancy, something that is fashionable, as opposed to something that has always been there and is very permanent, becomes the difference between the two. So these were the some of the things that we talked about.
Wonderful.